Do. All right. So today we want to talk about what are we talking about today?
Open houses.
Open houses. So let me give you a little background as to how this came about. I had the rare listing. I don't buy and sell property. I don't help people list and sell property generally. But some really good friends of mine had a house. Well, I helped them buy a house in downtown Decatur, and then their house near me here in the Oak Grove office. They needed to sell. So I listed it. And a few weeks ago, before the day before going to Mexico, I held an open house on a Saturday. I had 20 sets of people come through. And then, of course, we got under contract shortly thereafter. Now, what's interesting about that for me is I wasn't there trying to get clients. But I am quite certain that if I had been trying to get clients, I would have gotten at least two or three out of that group. Because many of the people that came through were people that were just starting their search or thinking about looking or, not really ready. Now, I also had people bring the agents bring clients with them to the open house. I had clients that had agents. It like whatever. It didn't, it was a mix. So then this past Saturday, I decided, well, I'm going to go out and see some open houses. So I went out to go see some open houses in the area, right? Going to see some of our agents' open houses, going to see some of the competitors' open houses, maybe do a little recruiting, a little bit of networking, and just see what's out there on the market. So I went to 5 open houses. Out of those 5 open houses, how many of them do you think had directional signs?
Half?
All of them.
Wow.
One. 1 out of 5 had directional signs. Now, these are open houses that were off of major roads, right? Like major high traffic, 100,000 count road count, like people going by, like crazy amounts of traffic and no directional. So I guess if I asked it in the wrong direction, I should have asked also how many of people thought they had put balloons out. Well, lo and behold, none of the people put balloons out. Like that was just not a thing. Um, and then how many people had at the house a sign that said open house?
Hopefully
What?
all.
Yeah, not all, Dan. I wish all. But literally, I think there were only 2 that had open house signs at the house. Um, I showed up at one at 1:40. It was supposed to go until 2 o'clock. And it looked like there wasn't a soul there. Like there was no visible activity that there had been anybody there that day. So I went on to the next one. And the next one, I pull up at like 1:50 and they're supposed to be starting at 2. So I know I'm going to have to wait a minute, right? But the agent's not there yet. Their their yard sign, which does not say open house, is literally hanging by one thread, right? Like it is hanging on a corner, like doing this kind of thing. And by the time I walked in, it had actually blown completely off and was just laying on the ground. No car because turns out she got dropped off. No car, no sign, no open door, no indication whatsoever. The only reason I went in is because when I happened to look back at the house after the car drove off, I saw the curtain move and somebody look out the window, and I thought, oh, well, I guess there's somebody in there. Let's go see what's going on. I just, so you might imagine my frustration because when I was an agent, I was a listing agent, and all I did was listings, and I never, ever, ever did open houses. Do you know why? Anybody?
Didn't
How
need to. The
how often?
market.
Well, okay, so it was a different market, but how often does the house that you're holding open sell during an open house?
Not very often.
Statistically, it's about 3% of the time.
But you
So,
don't have open houses to sell the house. You have open houses to get buyers and to
correct.
meet sellers that are trolling in the neighborhood trying to figure out what to do.
Absolutely. I had 3 or 4 neighbors come to my open house that again, if I had been working the neighborhood, I would have like had good conversations with them and followed up with them and wanted to get going with that. So these are the kinds of things that you have to think about as you're looking at your business. So I've heard agents say, "Oh, the market is slow. We're going into a recession. There's all this bad press out there about the market." And the reality is that we are not doing the job we need to be doing to get the clients because the clients are out there. Like I said, I had 20 sets of people come through my open house. Take off maybe 5 of them that had agents or were with an agent. There were at least, like I said, 3 or 4 from the neighborhood that would have been potential future listings because the lady next door talked about the fact that she was curious about selling her house and maybe she wanted to move downtown Decatur, as I told the story of the sellers. And then there were 3 or 4 solid people that were, "Oh, yep, I'm back visiting family from Utah. We're thinking about moving back to Atlanta, and we're just kind of talking about it." Great. You working with an agent? No. Could be, right? Great opportunities to get business. The other thing that kills me is that by putting signs out, like for my open house, I don't buy and sell properties. We mentioned that. I listed this house. What did I have to do? I had to go buy damn signs because I don't own any signs because I don't buy and sell property. So I had to buy a yard sign. I bought 3 directionals to put out. I printed up a little thing that said open house on Saturday, stuck it on there, put them out on the curb, put them out at Claremont and La Vista because I wanted people to see 2 things. I wanted them to see the Remax sign, the Remax balloon, and I wanted them to see that I was having an open house and that it was there. But they also had my name on them. So if I was marketing myself, then people would see my name. Zach Pasmanic is a household name in town. Why? Because he has hundreds of signs up all over town and has for the last 40 years, right? And so if you put your signs up and put your name on your sign, what does that do for you? It gets visibility, it gets people to see you, it gets people to know, "Oh, look, there's Dan Gunya," right? Like this is Dan works this neighborhood. Because every week I see new directionals or new open houses or new whatever popping up with Dan's name on them. So I know that when I want to call somebody and get business, that I'm probably going to call Dan and at least talk to him to see what's going on with that, right?
It
Let's
works.
talk about open house strategies. Because to be honest, what I did that I Rachel went on a first date and said she worked there. That's funny. Um, so what I did was half-assed. I put on the system, which those of you with Remax Metro, you need to understand the stuff that Remax Center staff will do for you. If you put in the system that you want it as an open house, so like when I listed it, I wrote on the system that I wanted to do an open house on Saturday from 2 to 4. They put it in, I didn't have to do shit. They did it all. So super easy, no effort on my part. Second thing I had to buy my signs. I bought my signs. I put them out the Friday before, and then Saturday morning I went and put balloons on them, all of them, so that they could be visible and see, right? So people would see them. And that's all I did. I didn't do all the stuff that you should do, right? Like I know we have checklists in the system. If you Google, you can find checklists for open houses. I know Lori teaches her team a whole open house thing. I'm sure Zach and Adam, you guys have an open house process that you go through. And it should be more extensive than that. I think Tina popped in earlier with the Red X thing, that we have access to that to be able to pull up numbers. You can pull up neighbors and call neighbors and personally invite them. You can call nearby apartment complexes of people that might be potentially buyers for that level of property, or you can call move up neighborhoods. All of that stuff is valid, viable things that will get you more business unless you don't do it, right? So who's going to get the business out in the market? Anybody on this call want business out in the market? Okay. And so I'll ask again, who's going to do what they need to do to get business out in the market? Show of hands. All right. All right. Good, good. Because that's what it takes. It takes a little bit of engagement to go out and I mean, it's not a lot of work. It's not like you got to spend 40 hours trying to get people to come to an open house. If you called people for an hour and a half, I didn't even do that and I had 20 people show up. Like I literally spent, I'm trying to think, maybe 30 minutes because I had to go put the signs out the one time, which was 15 minutes, and then I put balloons on the next 15 minutes, and then I showed up for the open house. Oh yeah, I did print flyers, because which I think the staff did for me because it was done. So I literally had it in my email and just printed them. So that was nice. Oh, by the way, the listing packet things that they print, very cool. So if you're not using those, whether you're a Remax Metro or a Remax Center, the listing packet things that they'll put together, which have like tax information, area information, walkables, brochure, like all kinds of cool stuff in it. And the first three are free. And then, you can make your own copies and go from there if you want, or you can order, I think, right, Tina? Can you order extras if you want them? But super cool. They just put them together and like they're ready to go, put them in the property. So what do you guys think about open houses? Talk to us, those of you that are outside the perimeter, those of us that are inside the perimeter. What do you think about open houses right now? Are they a thing?
Yes.
Yes.
And so what is your strategy on leveraging open houses to do your business?
Well, I
Right.
think that this is Susan. I'm outside the perimeter. I
Okay.
think that people like HGTV makes people think sometimes, in the mid 90s when I first got into real estate, the people would call you. We would get phone calls off the sign calls. People would use the phone for a phone. But now they kind of wait for the open house because I think TV made them think, well, that they're going to have an open house, right? And there's some of us that think I don't do open houses. It's not for me. I if there's I feel like it's part of the strategy. If you're going to expose a client's house in every way, some people shop by open houses. So I feel like it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Also too, you know, during the recession, I remember one time I had 69 signs in yards, 69 signs, 69 lockboxes on houses, and they were a lot of probably 30% of them were short sales. So they were pissed off every week, you know? And that type of street cred where people would see your signs, it matters. And open house signs are another way for people to see your signs. If you want to know strategy, I do it the same thing every time. I put it in FMLS and MLS's open house thing. I don't use Remax Center, but Remax Center and I probably do the same thing. I just have my assistant post it in the MLSs as an open house. It automatically will go to Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, all the websites. I put a post in Instagram and boost it, and I only spend about $15. A post on Facebook and boost it. And then I buy number 101 and 116 from the $1.25 tree. 101 is the smiley face. 116 is the red, white, and blue flag. It looks good with our signs. So I put one smiley face, one flag, the balloons on every sign. Um, Holly always trained you should go, so far out and bring a million people, but I'm a lazy person. I don't do that. I can't be doing all that. So I'll take it from the closest major road and I'll bring them in, so every turn there's a sign, there's a balloon. If somebody else is in the neighborhood trying to do it, then I'll double the signs up to piss them off, make sure come this way, don't go that way. But I only put them in, I put the sign in the house in front of the house, the Friday night before, because Gwinnett's sign ordinance is pretty gangster. Um, everybody else could get away with having signs up for years. I'd have one sign up for 1 hour extra, and I'd get the call that I'm going to get a $5,000 fine. So
Yeah.
I put signs up after 5 p.m. on Friday in front of the house. And then after that, I put them up just right before the open house and then take them down right after. Um, and I do make people sign in. I have a sign-in sheet that I just print off, and I tell them the owner requires it for, security. No, it's because I want to call them. But that's what I do.
Awesome. That's great information. Yes, do have to watch the sign ordinance and the sign police. They will get you all over in town as well. Obviously Atlanta, city of Atlanta and city of Decatur and just random places. I think Brookhaven is hyper about signs these days. So you just have to watch those. But that's a great information. Who else has got a strategy that they use with open houses?
I can add in, Brett. I agree with everything Susan said. City of Atlanta has a sign ordinance, and I found the other thing with the directionals, because I believe in them at, not 75 or whatever, but some help. I asked permission from the owners of corner lots, knock on the door and say, hey, I'm having an open house. Do you mind if I put this directional near your property? I've never had anybody say, get off my lawn, but I think that helps. And then there was something crazy a few years ago where people weren't allowed to use balloons. They had to use flags or something. I don't remember what that was all about, but there was a limit for a while. I still put the balloons out.
Yeah,
Take my chances.
Depends on your perspective. I think people say balloons kill birds, right? Because if you pop them and leave them out,
seagulls or something.
they get stuck on them, and so that's bad.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I don't think that's a major issue as long as you
no,
just let
no,
them into the air, right?
no. And the last thing I do when I greet people is I try to just get an idea, like, how did you find out about my openness? Because I want to see what works and then try to engage them. And, you're just looking around, your neighbor, just try to strike a conversation. See some people, it's like, oh, I'm just looking and don't talk to me. That's fine. Just one quick question, Brett, you mentioned you had pretty good turnout for, the effort you put in. Was the offer the result of your open house, out of curiosity?
They had seen it before. No, it was not.
Okay, just curious.
Whereas Max did one of the agents in our office here in Oak Grove, did one at a similar property like a week or two before that, and 100% the offer was from that. But like I said, selling a house on an open house is, roughly 3% of the time you're going to have that happen. So,
Sure.
it's not, you don't want to bank on that. Like, you want to make sure you're doing all the other stuff. Like Susan said, getting their names and information. I'll ask, is anybody using any kind of technology to capture people's names on an open house or any kind of event like that? Seth, you are?
A pen.
A pen. Electrified technology, smart Alec.
Your license number starts with a 1. You do not. You use paper.
Yes, this is probably true. And if it's only 5 digits, that's a whole nother conversation. But there's through KV Core or Bold Trail or whatever it's called now. There is an excellent app that you can use. I did not use it. Again, I wasn't surfing for clients, but it's an excellent way to do it because I will tell you, I have used it in the past. And the reality is that when you use pen and paper, you deal with the issue of what does that say? Is that an A or an O or an 8 or a 3 or like, I'm not really sure, right? Whereas if you use digital technology, they're typing. Now they might still say Mickey Mouse or whatever, right? Like there's people that are going to do whatever. But at the end of the day, at least you have a shot at knowing who they are, and it automatically gets put into your CRM, which automatically allows you to apply a follow-up campaign and make sure that you stay in touch with them and all those sorts of things. So I would personally recommend that. I do highly recommend the call arounds. Like if you really want to push not the open house so much, but your business, use this as an opportunity to reach out to people. You can call people, you can email people in your sphere, you can do social media posts. So if you're a new agent that doesn't have any listings and it doesn't have any buyers that you're working with, you go find a friend in the office. There are lots of them in every office that would be happy to let you do an open house at their house, at their listing. Because as I mentioned, when I was a listing agent, I'd have been happy to have it. I had agents do open houses at mine all the time. But I told sellers, look, I don't do open houses because open houses are to get clients, not sell your house. So I'm sure I'll find an agent that wants to do an open house and we'll do that, which will give it, you know, a little bit more visibility, which to Susan's point is valid, right? Like, especially right now, it gives you just one other way to promote the property. But at the end of the day, you know, they can do the open houses and get the clients off of it. And it's a win-win for the listing agent that doesn't have to spend their time doing it, because if you have 69 properties out there, you can't do that many open houses. You'd be insane. You know, you'd start at like 9 a.m. and do 2-hour shifts all day Saturday and all day Sunday. That would be quite the crazy. Let's drift for just a second from open houses, public open houses on the weekend, which, just as a question, I've mentioned multiple times that these were both on Saturdays, that I did an open house and that other people, I went to open houses last week. I know Sundays are like your normal open house day, but there are a ton of Saturday open houses out there, and you should consider that. You know, I know some people are like, well, I don't want to give up my Sunday because I do other stuff with my family or whatever. Great, do it on Saturday. And you don't have to do it. My favorite, one of our agents that I went to visit, she said, I was like, this is kind of an interesting time. It was from like 11 to 1 or something. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting time. She's like, yeah, I don't want to lose my afternoon, so I do it a little earlier. If I'm going to do it, I do it on my time. She still had a bunch of people come. She didn't have any signs out, but that was a whole nother thing. But anyway, so that's something to think about. It doesn't have to be on a Sunday, right? Like there are communities, for example, there are large communities where you might consider doing one in the evening after everybody gets home from work, right? Well, as we drift into that, let's talk about agent caravans or agent open houses. Is anybody seeing those come back with a vengeance? A little bit.
Limited.
Little bit, not as much as the public open houses, which is interesting. So, you know, I definitely am seeing those come in, but they're not as strong as the public open houses. But again, you can leverage the staff and just put in, hey, I want to do an agent caravan on such and such a date from such and such a time. I'm going to have, you know, brownies or whatever. And they'll put it in for you. And that way you don't have to. I know we are all very independent agents as RE/MAX agents, right? And we like to do our own things and take care of our own stuff. But you'd be surprised at how much time it frees up for you to leverage the staff that we have as a brokerage, because it breaks up that time. You don't have to spend the hour and a half. Now, some people say, well, it takes me just as long to fill out the listing input form as it does to just put it in. Okay, it might, but that's not true for everybody. Okay? There are people out there that putting it in the system is a challenge, and it's going to take you time. You could take a pen and paper. Those of you with lower license numbers, you could take pen and paper and quickly fill out a dual entry form, and yet it might take you 2 or 3 or 4 times that long to actually put it in the system. And then you get to the end and you hit submit and it goes, you missed something, go back, find it. What is it? You know, like all those sort of things. Along that line, has anybody used OcuCell? Have you seen the emails about OcuCell?
Yeah.
So OcuCell is a
Yeah.
new AI-powered dual entry system, and it enters it into both FMLS and Georgia MLS. You upload the photos to it. It's a all-inclusive package. It's fairly intuitive, except for, and Tina will laugh, because the only issue it has is when you go to log into it and use your credentials from FMLS and Georgia MLS, you have to put your username in all caps. I don't know why, but if you don't put your username as all caps, it doesn't work. And it won't connect to FMLS and it won't connect to Georgia MLS. So that's the tip for the day. If you're if you're putting in your own listings, OcuCell is great. It does pull some information. It has a little bit of AI feature built into it. And it, you know, once you connect it to the systems, it's really smooth. It'll upload all the photos. It'll put everything in. It's really, really functional from that perspective. So just something to think about. If you are putting stuff in yourself, use OcuCell or look at OcuCell. What else? Adam, what comments do you have about open houses? Talk to us about doing an open house in a condo building. Those are fun.
Well, Brett, I'm going to back up and just share with the team. I love personally open houses, and it, I would say, was a huge cornerstone to a lot of my success early on and continuing on to this day. So I think we all agree a lot of times these open houses are really not to sell the property. I think if anything, you're showing the seller that you're really hustling, and you know they see open house that you're hosting and they think that you're doing it to help them sell their home, and really we all know it really isn't. But I can't tell you how many people I've been able to network with based off the open house. They're unrepresented, and all of a sudden, you know, I find them something else. So what I do want to share with everybody, though, is, or talk about, is our behavior as realtors when we are hosting open houses. So, Brett, something that really resonated with me is you showed up to an open house recently, and the agent was, you know, late. I think that's so unprofessional. You've got to get there early. You know, you got to put your signs out. There are things that you need to do inside the home to prepare it for your guests. You know, you got to turn all the lights on, make it smell nice, touch it up a little bit if you have to, clear off the stack of business cards from the other agents that have been there for the last 2 weeks, and spider webs. So you got to come with your cleaning stuff. I bring a stick back with me too from home, just to make the carpets look nice. But most importantly is I can't tell you how many times I've walked into open houses and there's the agent, they're camping out in the kitchen, they got their laptop up, their jeans, hair pulled back, and they're doing emails or whatever. And hey, y'all, welcome in. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, thanks.
Beautiful.
What do? You walk around with your clients, you're like, boy, this place sucks. Let's go, you know?
You sneak out the other door, right? Like that's
Right.
You don't want to go back through the kitchen.
But I think a lot of people need to change their mindset where if you are committing to spending 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday, you are on stage for that 3 hours. And it's fine to bring your laptop and work in between if it is in fact quiet. But the second somebody pulls up in that driveway, I don't know about you guys, but I get excited. My heart starts to race. I'm like, ooh, you know, I'm up. So the second that door opens, it is my job to go into host mode and make them feel like they're welcome into this beautiful home. And what I'm not doing is pushing the sign-in sheet in front of them. To me, that's last. So after I have an incredible conversation with them, and we have to be very careful because you don't want to jump on them like, wow. It's making them feel welcome, finding out. And I love Dan's question is, how did you hear about the open house? I want to know, you know, what part of my marketing efforts worked. Was it the signs? Did you see me on Zillow? You know, what was it? Maybe you're a neighbor that has been keeping an eye on the property, so you need to find that out. But I really like to just making them feel welcome, asking them, may I give you just a quick 30-second tour of the home, and then I'll set you free to explore on your own. And then that 30 seconds, I'm highlighting what are some key things about this fabulous home, depending on how big it is, that I want to make sure they know about. So I'll turn them loose, but I'll check in on them every couple minutes because we've all been shopping in stores where I don't know about you guys, but I can't stand when somebody's at the front door to a retail store and like, hi, how are you? You looking for anything special? And like, what do we all say? No, I'm just browsing, right? And then we do a loop around the store and we walk out versus the opposite. If somebody wants to do an elevator pitch and get to know me a little bit, I might be a little bit more inclined to have a small conversation with them. So, as these people are in the open house, if you're going through LP Mama, which is very possible with these folks, even if it's busy, you need to still be acknowledging people when they're walking in the door with a hand wave. Hey, y'all, welcome in. I'll be with you in just a minute. Welcome in. Take a look around. But you need to learn how to pivot when somebody's just running at the mouth so that you can excuse yourself. It's like working a cocktail party. I'll check in with you in just a minute. I just want to make sure I say hello to these folks that just walked in. But again, your job is to be a great party host, finding out if you can be a service in their search. And then at the very end, you're getting their permission to capture their information on that sign-in sheet. And the script I use is, it can be either, hey, do I have your permission to continue our conversation? I'd love to reach out to you later on today, even with next steps, or maybe you didn't have a chance to have a great conversation. It's maybe before you leave. Would you mind doing me a favor and signing in today so that the seller knows I was here today doing my job? But like, oh yeah, man, I got you. But I like Brett, make sure you read it after they're done filling it out because I can't read people's handwriting half the time. Like, oh my gosh, I can't read this person's handwriting after we had a great conversation,
Right. And now you have no way of finding them, right? Like you're never ever going to find them again.
Well,
And I think that's so important that you try to capture that information in a way. And I know agents they'll write it themselves, right? Like
yes.
they'll write down the names, they'll write down the phone number or whatever, at least part of it, so that they have it. So if you want to do pen and paper, that works too. The Pathway Group, you guys had a question or?
Well, ditto, Adam, on everything. Thank you. And then one thing I was going to say is what I always encourage, because yes, we talked a lot about the before, like the promotion to get the traffic in, because that's what we want. We want the traffic because whatever our strategy is, we're leveraging it to get more clients. Might be a big strategy for everybody, or where getting exposure, like Susan said, she puts it as part of her strategy and part of her process. I think one thing to consider, no matter what your process is before, the during process, Adam's got a great during process. He knows how he's welcoming people in. That was very much in my past life. I did on-site sales for builders. That was my life 8 hours a day at a model home, right? I learned how to get those people in, get them to sign in. I learned my process, and it sounds like he has done that. And I would encourage everybody to try different things. One thing I do encourage with a lot of the new agents here with the 2 or 3 hours that they're spending at their open houses is, okay, go in intentionally with, okay, whatever my strategy is, I'm doing this to get some buyers, or I'm doing this to get new sellers. How many people am I adding to my database at the end of this open house? I'm going in with a goal to add, okay, I want 5 new people in my database, or I want 10 new people in my database. Holly will train you and say, you go in with a goal of, I want to set an appointment for later in the week with one buyer. That can be another strategy too. But if you need the small wins, so to speak, it's okay, how many people can I add into my database? So if you're not trying that or kind of going in with that mentality, maybe try that as well for the during process. And then I know we haven't really talked about after for follow-ups, but I think there's lots of different ways for follow-ups too.
And I think that's an important piece, right? Like if you do the work up front, you get the people there, you do the work while people are there, you build that relationship, you build that rapport. If you don't follow up with them once, more than a cookie cutter email that says, thanks for coming to my open house Saturday. Let me know if you need anything. Like that's why I think it's really important that when you're doing a sale, think about this. If you walk onto a car lot, which I always hate correlating this, but if you walk onto a car lot and the sales guy comes up to you, or four of the sales guys come at you, and they say, "Which car do you want to buy today?" You're like Adam's reaction of, "Oh yeah, but you're right." Like, but if they come up and go, "Hey, are you from around here, or are you from, like engage people like you're at a cocktail party." I think that's the best way to think about it. When you're out networking with people, you're out hanging out with people, you are, if you've been doing this as long as some of us have, you're always on, right? Like you're always on. But you're not, hopefully, that person that comes in and goes, "Hey, I'm the local real estate agent. Anybody need anything? I'm gonna be the person to come and help," right? Like, and you can be. I know agents that are successful that way. I don't talk to them. But that's, that's I'm more of a, hey, let's get to know people. And then when you hear those trigger words, right? Like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we're back visiting from Utah. I grew up here. But my girlfriend and I are thinking about moving back here." Oh, yeah, okay. Trigger, right? So when you've been thinking about it, every time you come back, you've been, all right, so what are you thinking? What part of town? What kind of, like dig in, right? Have a conversation with a real person, be a real person. And you'll get a lot of feedback that you can then leverage. And then when you follow up, instead of saying, "Oh, thanks for coming to my open house on Saturday. If you need anything," you can say, "Hey, I hope you have safe travels back to Utah. Let me know when you're going to be in town again. If you want to try and get some things going, I can get you a better understanding of what it's going to cost." Obviously, like we talked about pricing there compared to here, like they live in a little tiny shoebox that cost way more than the house that I was showing. They thought it was huge. It was only like 1,600 square feet. So just out of reference, it's not huge. They thought it was huge. So, it's all about having those conversations and really following up a program. And that's the one thing. So Lori has said it, Adam has said it, Tina has said it, I have said it, Susan has said it. A system for what you do to get ready for the open house, what you do at the open house, and what you do after the open house. You have to have a system, because if you don't have a system, you're winging it. And those of you that know me well, I love to wing stuff. How much prep do you think I did for this class? I sent out the email. Uh, so, but you have to have a system to make sure you don't miss things. What did I do to prep for this class? I made sure I thought about the things that I wanted to make sure I highlighted, and I've got that list in my head. And I know, okay, I want to make sure that we talked about what we do before, what we do during, and what we do after. And that those are the three key points of an open house. And it's not just, "Oh, okay, I want to make sure I miss Super Bowl Sunday," or whatever, right? Like, there's so many different facets to it. But if you have a system and a process, and if you're really organized, a checklist, now you know what you have to do when. So when you first sign that listing paperwork and okay, I always do an open house the first Saturday or first Sunday after I list something. Okay, great. So you already put that in, they put that in the system for you, or your assistant puts that in the system for you. What's the next step? Getting into the system is just half the battle, right? Based on where it is. Can I put signs out earlier than the Friday night or not? Do I have to wait until an hour before to put them out and not lose them? Can I put balloons? Do I have big flags? I know I love agents that use the Mylar balloons, not just the red, white, and blue regular balloons. The Mylar ones, two things: they're reusable, refillable. So if you're sustainably, focused or a little green, you can use those and use them over and over again, because you can keep refilling it with helium. They also typically are a little shiny, which is, catches people's eyes a little bit when they come by. You can have those custom printed and made if you really want to get fancy, which would really draw people's attention. Talk about being the talk of the town. If you could get a custom made Mylar balloon that you put out for all your open houses, and it was clear that that was your open house, right? That was part of your branding. The Zach signs, as Rachel said, the Zach signs are iconic, right? Like everybody knows what they are. The Zach did it again is, and I used to compete against Zach when I was an agent, so I can say this with wholeheartedly that we used to do everything we could to downplay the effectiveness of that and the aspect of that, and it was very hard to fight against because it's so strong. And so whether you have, 70, 80 listings right now or not, even if you just have one, if you do it and leverage it, then leverage some of your friends' listings, some of your colleagues' listings, and put your directionals out with your name on them and your fancy balloon that gets people's attention. And lo and behold, you'll start talking to the neighbors. You could door knock a neighborhood. This is going to sound like archaic, but let's go back to the technology of the pin, Seth. And you could door knock a neighborhood of around your open house. And you could door knock it before your open house, and you could door knock it after the open house. What if you door knock it after the house, after the open house? Adam, what are you going to say if you're door knocking a neighborhood after you did an open house?
I'd like to maybe drop off a flyer and introduce myself as the listing. Oh, what's Seth? You're raising your hand. What would you say?
Seth, say
But
Bill,
it.
I'm
after,
out.
you got me, Brett. Sorry you missed out.
Yeah. Either you're gonna thank them for being there if they were there, or if they weren't there, just be like, I just wanted to let you know, give you an update on the open house that happened down the street. We had so many people come in. I'm worried we're gonna have too many buyers for this house, and I didn't know if you happen to know anybody in the
I
neighborhood
love
that's looking
that.
to sell.
I'm worried that we're going to have too many buyers for this house. What a great statement. Everybody should write that down because that is awesome. I was leaning more towards what Adam ended with, which was, hey, I'm sorry you missed the open house. Like, you didn't get a chance to see in it. But if you want to, I'd be happy to show it to you sometime. And just letting you know the details about it since we've had, activity and all those sorts of things. So yes, those are great. Those are
I
great.
think another one just to add is pick your, like, do you have any friends that you know that want to move into this area, which is a good one. And by the way, let me just say, Anna, I didn't see you yesterday, but congratulations on your top 5 award for Walton
Woo!
Barrow. And then the only other thing, sorry to interrupt them, and Ryan is now going to be really great at open houses
I
in
mean,
15 years.
leveraging the little ones is very helpful. I used to have
Yes.
mine do help me at the tent outside of the real estate office in town. They had a farmer's market across the street, and we would set up a tent in front of the office on our side of the street so we didn't have to pay the farmer's market fee. And we'd hand out balloons and we'd have coloring and all that. And my little girls were there and they drew, literally somebody would walk up and they'd be like, here's one of my dad's cards. And
Perfect.
I'm gonna say
My only other question is if anybody uses this strategy or if this is old school, but we used to hear from agents that Zillow had a silent video feature that you could do that would kind of boost your listing and your open house. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I was curious if anybody knew.
If you don't choose to do Zillow's little video tour, if you don't use the app or have your photographer do it, Tina, there's a little box that says only show me homes with, I forget the term, Zillow, oh gosh.
super
It's not
cool,
Zillow.
whatever.
No, there's a word, only show me houses with Zillow, whatever tours, right? And if they click that, then only the people that opted in to do it on their proprietary software would see that you would miss out. So I always pay the $150 to the photographer so they will do it on the gimbal, when they're in the house. Because if you don't, then your listings could be blackballed from basically Zillow if people accidentally, I think it's called the Zillow tour. If you only want to see houses with Zillow tours, the buyers might be like, I only want to see houses with Zillow tours. They'll click that and then you're missing out on those eyeballs.
Well, it
Maybe
used to
is that what
be.
you're thinking of?
Yeah, it used to be like an in-app option where you would just basically do a silent video tour of the house. So even not necessarily professionally that you had to do
No,
it, but
you just have to do it
yeah,
on their app.
yeah.
Yes. You
Hmm.
can't take your own video and say, oh, use this for that. No, no, no. You have to
But
do it on their app.
I think they fixed it, but we used to have agents that would just hold the phone in front of a screen and have their video play on the screen that they had done, and it would show up in there. But I don't think you can do that anymore. I think they stopped it.
Brett, I only had one comment on what you said. Um, I would I would not ever use the statements that open houses don't work, it's a waste. Um, I would never be negative about an open house to a seller because um, if you are in desperation station, the absorption rate is, super high, not a lot of buyers, trying to get any eyeballs you can on the house, right? Um, if you tell them at the get-go that this is a waste of time, they're going to be like, they're just wasting time. They have no clue what to do. And that may be the truth, right? But you don't want to come off like that. So I just would be cautious about saying, like, if sellers they ask, I feel like they ask me a lot, do you do open houses? And what I say is I try to figure out every way that a buyer is going to search for a house. And sometimes they search for houses. One of the tools is an open house. Um, I do not personally like to sit staring at cookies for 2 hours all alone. So I don't do that typically the first weekend. And I tell them that we get a lot of activity off of the internet and the MLS right away. And your sign creates activity. So I tell them that it's just for swimsuit season. We try to stay away from the cookies for a little while. But if we don't get sold in maybe the first week or so, then we will introduce it to the market in an open house. And that's just so that I don't want to ever be negative about something that I'm going to try because I don't want them to think I'm wasting time and not being effective. So that's the only reason I would not say the statement that you said about, but yeah, we'll do it. I don't want to tell them that. I want them to think everything I'm doing is just gold.
I 100% agree with that. I think it's very, very important you know the submarket, the current submarket of what's happening because yeah, you don't want to go in and say, I don't do open houses and then need to do an open house, right? Like I mean, you put yourself in a bad position, to Susan's point. So make sure that you're having good combos with that. Anna, did you have a
I just wanna say this. I hate open houses, of course, because it's like 2 hours, 3 hours. But I'll be honest with you, and I'm gonna say this. Last year alone, 4 of my listings sold because of the open house. I'm not kidding. Um, some of them didn't even have any showings, and I don't feel like it's the open house per se. I think that when we post it, when we repost it, when it's going on Zillow, for some reason it goes up in people's minds, and I'm not joking. I saw one house that had one showing, and I said, okay, I need an open house, and I did back to back Saturday and Sunday. I had more looky-loos because it was a high-end property, but I enjoyed those people. They walked in and they said, you know what, we just wanted to look at the house. I'm like, come on in, have some cookies. I mean, I literally but one of those people who was an agent said she's always passed that area and never thought to see, never even knew this house. She bought the house over the
Nice.
weekend. Her
Oh,
whole entire family came. I literally gave them water, drinks, food. I asked them to stay. They stayed there, and she was the one that actually bought the house. So I now don't say open houses, but like Susan said, the first 2 weekends, I don't really, but after that, I just go ahead and do it because I feel like it comes, it pops back up in the market and everybody's kind of, like, okay, let's go and see it. But it works now.
I think those are great comments because I think that it shows the variations of strategy that you can take. And depending on your business, you may take one strategy or another, but do something. right? Be proactive with your business, whether it's using other people's listings to do open houses and get buyer clients, or if it's you're promoting your own listings or you're doing both. You know, do something and be active, because now is the time. If you haven't noticed, spring has sprung, and the market is crazy. There is more, like, we're getting properties that are selling with multiple offers still. So if you're not, you need to be paying attention to what you're doing with pricing. There is still a lot of pent up buyer demand. There are lots and lots of buyers out there. They're just not ready to jump over a cliff to something they don't understand or that they're nervous about. So you've got to present everything. You've got to play that cocktail host, and you've got to really pull it together. So I hope this was helpful for everyone.
Question.
Yeah.
When you're putting your open house the day before or days before, even the morning of, on your social media, and you're listing, you know, a few features and the address and the time, should you put the price right on your social media, or do you leave that like, call me for details if you want to know anything more?
I will let any other agents want to chime in on that, because I can argue either way.
I do.
You put the price?
I put the price, I put the address, I put the time. I put a few features, like if it's on acreage or if it's got, you know, I don't know, 4-car garage or what, something that's sparkly. If it's in the super fancy school district, you know, the main, I put those highlights. I think nothing pisses me off than register here to get the info. I'm like, screw you. I don't want to come. You're dead to me now, you know? I just, if it's not even in my price point, then,
Yeah.
you know, and
I
I ask all the time about, you know, where'd they come from? I never have anybody say they're coming from my signs. Never anymore. They only come from Zillow. I ask 100% of the time, and nobody's coming in by the balloons. I think it's maybe one of those, you know, see and be seen kind of things that people are seeing that I'm doing my work, but they are not coming in from the signs anymore in where I'm at.
Yeah,
They're
and I think
looking on
again,
Zillow.
that's very area specific, right? Like I for sure had several people that said that they saw the sign and they stopped in. So you know, I think you
Well, I
can't
would say
kind of
too, if
blanket
you don't
everything.
see a sign, that's uncomfortable. Like for those
Right.
people
No,
that
when
had
I was
open
going to that
houses,
one that didn't have any signs, I was nervous going up to the door. I'm like, I don't
yeah,
know who's
I
gonna
would
be in
assume
here.
that they weren't they changed their mind and just canceled.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
100%. So I think that, you know, the beauty is that everything is out there on the digital webs and accessible. But the pain point is that everything's out there and accessible on digital webs. So everybody can see everything. But there's nothing like seeing a house in person, right? And so take the time, put together a plan and a strategy, and work it into your business as to how you're going to do it, whether you're doing it like Susan does as part of her listings, or you're doing it as a newer agent trying to get clients, or any variant in between, or all of the above. You have another question there in the pathway group?
I have a question.
Go ahead, James, got a question.
Ideally, how far in advance do you recommend advertising the open house on MLS before it's actually held?
I like to put it in about a week ahead, and make sure that it is in there and all the things, because I want to be able to do things like put my signs out early. I want to be able to do call arounds. I want to be able to do emails I want to be able to do social media posts. And I want that to spread out over time and trickle and build up the anticipation, kind of like there was for this class of, you know, you don't want to miss out, right? Like you don't want to miss this great opportunity. And I know a lot of agents that actually will only activate their listing with an open house. So like they will list effective, Friday night after hours. And then they'll list, Thursday or Friday and say no showings until Saturday. Open house starts at 12 and they'll have people come in. So there's lots of different strategies. Again, it depends on the market, it depends on what's happening in your area. And so those are things that you should be talking to your colleagues that obviously, like we are today, have a wealth of knowledge. And so I think that's super helpful. Susan posts on Wednesday, the Sunday before a Sunday. So I think that's great information. Adam, go ahead.
A couple of you had asked me to talk about condos.
Oh, yeah.
So real quick, if you're going to do a great open house for a condo, I think you need no less than 3 people, one for the front door, one in the unit, and one that's going to float to show amenities. Robin's shaking her head.
That's a team effort in most condo buildings.
Secondly, if you know you've got a really competitive listing at a condo building, reach out to all the other listing agents and see if they want to do a group open house. So more people show up. Sometimes your listing will sell based off the competition and the pricing.
That's also true in single family homes too, though. If you've got a neighborhood that's got 2 or 3 listings in it and you get a new listing in there, get those other agents on the phone and say, hey, do you want to do a joint open house on, Sunday or Saturday or whatever? And to Susan's point, you make sure that your balloons and things look the best. And they're going to drive people to you. And if your property is properly listed and shows well, all of that extra traffic that those other agents put the effort into getting now comes to see yours, and you're going to be the one that gets the offers.
And if it's a high rise with a concierge, make sure they don't need a pre-approval. Because I've shown up before trying to do an open house for a colleague and they're like,
no,
pre-approved, sorry.
Not happening.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Try again. You can stand out front and talk to people as they show up because you're not bringing them in.
And then lastly, I like to ask my seller to post something internally on the portal, and I'll write up the little script advertising me as their listing agent to contact me with any questions. So it's a free ad to the whole building. So that's another.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, guys, I hope you got something useful out of this. We're going to wrap up and let you get on with your day and go out and do some good, productive work. I appreciate all of you taking the time to come and join us and share with each other. That is what these Wednesdays are for, is to share with each other. I am by no means the expert on all things as much as I tend to pretend to be. So it is so helpful to have real world experience and people out there that are doing the different things in different areas and share that experience so that we can all grow from that. So thank you for those that showed and those that participated. So have a wonderful day, and we'll have a recording out there.
Thanks, Brett.
If you feel like there's somebody else that will benefit from it, please feel free to share it.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.